New data from StatsCan shows that back in October, Canada reported the lowest level of exports to the U.S. since 1997. Here to discuss how this all impacts the upcoming CUSMA talks this year is Marc Gilbert, Managing Director at BCG Centre for Geopolitics. Marc, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Roger.
We're still a few months away, but is this starting to give people an idea of how these talks might unfold when we look at the trade going each direction, that it's been dropping?
Yeah, well, let me unpack this for a second. If I step back, and you may have seen this, we released a report today that looks out 10 years for forward-looking trade of goods. And of course, CUSMA is part of this, and I'll get to this in a second. But what we really see is a multinodal sort of assemblage that is going to emerge. You've got one node, the U.S., one node, China. Another node, which is really important because this is where Canada sits, is the plurilateralists. Think EU, UK, South Korea, Asian countries, mainly members of CPTPP. But in essence, these plurilateralists, of which Canada is part of, are looking to diversify trade away from the U.S. through rules of law, through norms of normal trading. It's existing, and they're basically expanding. And then you've got BRICS Plus as a last node. On your question of CUSMA, it is very clear that there are multiple scenarios for where this may land. Knowing that it may not land, Canada is trying to build out trading relationships with other nations, hence the plurilateralists. Bookends on CUSMA. No agreement. It's forfeited, it's closed, it's gone. Mm-hmm. Other bookend, it's completely overhauled. We do not expect tweaks on the margin. So no agreement, full-out overhaul of the agreement. In our last interaction with USTR, the direction of travel was a refresh, a revisit, an overhaul of CUSMA. Your guess is as good as mine where we'll land in the middle of these two things. It could also be two agreements, right? One with Mexico and the U.S. and one with Canada and the U.S. because the demands are very different and the expectations are very different. For now, the cards are on the table for an agreement to get struck. In what shape and form, still unknown.
So, and through all this, I mean, it is such a complicated time right now. You've got trying to do CUSMA, but then trying to reach out to China. We have the Prime Minister heading there,
correct?
And the other options, the other node that you talked about. Can we move that easily? Reposition from the U.S. to those two other directions?
In short, nothing is easy. However, you saw the recent trade data from Stats Canada. You just enunciated it. I saw it come out this morning. Shows that some of it can move. Of course, some goods are easier to move than others. But the reality is the Global South, BRICS Plus, China, they're all still trading. And they're trading heavily. At least 60% of the trade is not directly or indirectly affected by the U.S. And Canada is well positioned to lean into it. Now, things have to happen, you know, pipelines and infrastructure, but it can be done. It's just not as easy as heading south as it has been in the last while. Now, note, in our forecast, 10 years out, U.S. trade growth is growing more slowly than it has been. It's going to grow at 1%. Mm-hmm. China trade is going to grow at 2%. Why? Because China's trading even more with the Global South, the BRICS, and the rest of the world. Plurilateralist trade growth is going to be 3%, right? Because they all realize they need to diversify trade because they've been fairly dependent on the U.S. Last point on this, global trade is still growing. It's growing at about 2.5%, which is 0.1 roughly above GDP. So Canada is a trading nation. It stands to gain from trading with others. It's positioned to do so. The feasibility will depend on how fast we mobilize.
And it feels like we might be, I want to say, a little late to the table for more international trading because we've relied on the U.S. What do we bring that other countries will want then?
Stability. The norms of global trade, rules-based trade. Whether the UK, South Korea, many Asian countries, even Cambodia, EU, they all still operate today with stable rules-based trade. And Canada is part of that. So stability, quality, guarantee of supply chain. I don't know if we're late to the game. I think we are converging that it's time to act and act faster further.
And you think we can do this pivot?
Absolutely. On certain goods, I think it'll be harder because certain goods just don't travel and there's no demand for it. But absolutely, there is no reason why Canada is not more exposed in exporting to the global south. And global south is growing much faster than the U.S. Of course, their consumption rate is not the same. The wealth per capita is not the same, but the growth rate is enormous. And there's no reason why that should be left open to other nations to serve.
And are we starting to see any trends? I mean, it's essentially been 9 months since Liberation Day, our election, the election here of Mark Carney, the elbows up, and we're looking elsewhere. Are we starting to see any trends in trade with that?
Early signals. I mean, you saw the data today. It's indicative, but it would be anecdotal information that I have. What we're seeing is leaders in Canada have and are embedding geopolitics into any capital and strategic decision they're making. They're really trying to enhance their supply chain resilience, whether it's enhancing others by being the provider and the supplier of choice, or their own. And there's a cost to that, by the way. And everyone's trying to reduce costs, because no matter what happens in the new world order, you need to be as cost productive as possible. Canada stands to gain there. Leaders are acting on this, and I think they've come to the table ready to move.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up there, Mark. I was going to ask another question, but I think we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Roger.
Marc Gilbert is Managing Director at BCG Center for Geopolitics.